So, welcome everybody. This is our Ignite Minnesota's Tech Tuesday, which is just kind of a casual conversation about different aspects of tech and entrepreneurship. Today, we have with us Drea from CORI, which is the Center on Rural Innovation. And I will hand it over to her to kind of introduce herself and explain a little bit about what CORI does and what kind of resources they offer. So they are one of our partners in this work that Ignite does. So
Yeah, thanks, Val. So my name's Drea. As Val said, I'm the network coordinator for Corey's Rural Innovation Network. And for those of you that are curious about Corey, is that we're really a capacity building organization all around building tech economies in rural communities. So what does that actually mean? That means that we partner with organizations like Ignite Minnesota to help guide organizations to build their ecosystem. So there's usually one or two organizations who are leading the work within a community, and we can also be like, we can come in and do strategies with people over like what their ecosystem looks like. We can help people with programs that have been identified. Val sits down and talks with me about like, hey, I'm kind of struggling on like XYZ program. And then we just chat about what that looks like. And what I specifically am is like, I'm the first touch point for the organization in the Rural Innovation Network. And I get to draw the connections across the communities and see who all needs to chat with each other because the biggest value for our Rural Innovation Network is that we have 37 communities all across the nation, and they are learning and planning and figuring it all out together. So, like Ignite Minnesota, anyone on the team can call us up and be like, hey, I'm having this issue. I'm like, oh, what do you know? Independence, Oregon is having the exact same issue. I'm a little different than some of the members on the team because I live in one of the other rural communities. I live in Traverse City, Michigan, so just across the lake in Wisconsin from y'all. But I am grateful to say I got to go see y'all's work about a year ago, and co-host the summit with y'all. So that was delightful.
thank you, and thank you for working with us. It's been super helpful. Uh, I,
Y'all are a delight,
yeah,
so
it
no
it
worries.
helps our community of entrepreneurs. Um, So we're here to talk kind of about what a tech-based economic development strategy is or looks like and why it's
Mhm.
important. Can you give us kind of a nutshell rundown version of how you see that?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to share some of our framework as we do this. So if it's all right with y'all, I'm just going to share my screen so y'all can really see what it is that we're talking about. So, one of the things I love about Corey is that we actually have a research department that actually gets to dive really deep into what makes tech entrepreneurship really work within the ecosystems. And with that, we've been able to develop this framework, which sometimes we joke around and call it the Dorito chip and whatnot. But what we have found is that there are key components that have to be there before we can actually help with some of the ecosystem building. And Ignite Minnesota has been so great on some of these things, but the necessary infrastructure and the foundational pieces here. So, like, some of these pieces that we look for are just like, hey, everyone actually has housing issues. So if y'all are just like, oh, housing's number one there, yeah, I have not heard of a single community that isn't struggling with housing, my own included. And then another component that I think is really important, but it's not like any less than or anything like that, is um, leadership and whatnot. And I think technically, let me just look real quick on what Oh, do. Oh yeah, public sector leadership and support. So there we go. There's the official component of it. But like that for me means that like you have people who are willing to push this and actually make it happen. So some of y'all may know them. I call them the cheerleaders, the go-getters and whatnot. They're going to be the ones pulling the important pieces together and trying to make sure that even if change is happening slowly, that it is happening intentionally and maybe even incrementally, but movement is still forward. And once you have all those foundational elements in place, we try to make sure that there's the necessary infrastructure. So, for example, broadband, once again, still local leadership capacity and co-working and entrepreneurship spaces. So, like Ignite Minnesota, like y'all have a really delightful co-working space where people can come, exchange ideas, and be able to chat about like, hey, are you struggling with XYZ? It's like, yeah, I'm struggling with that too. Here's how I solved it and whatnot. And another one is we do have a broadband team here. And they actually work with people on like, what does your broadband look like? Like, what does access look like? Because it's really hard to build a tech economy if you don't have reliable internet. And then when it actually comes to when our in our framework, um, where I get to spend a lot of my time and the teams that I work with for the Rural Innovation Network, we're usually working in these five direct drivers. So when it comes to entrepreneurs, we want to make sure that they're building scalable tech entrepreneurship, that there's support for that. A lot of communities, when they ask for support, there's like, what does this look like? How do we help people? And then we have several communities who are talking about access to capital. So some of them have angel networks, some of them do not. How do you set up a fund? All that jazz. And and so like when we're talking about just working through these different components of like, hey, where are our tech jobs? Just so y'all know, this is one of the things I love about working at CORI, is that for every one tech job created in a community, 3 to 5 regular industry jobs are also created. So when people are asking, like, why are you emphasizing tech jobs? Like that data point right there is very important. And so we help people look at who is hiring the tech jobs because it's not always like I know some communities have Google or you do have a tech entrepreneurship space that seems really obvious, but some of it's like the local hospital has to have a cybersecurity person. The schools have to have cybersecurity and whatnot. And you have to have like the best education in that. So you need to make sure that your workforce is ready for these jobs and that they're able to adjust. And it doesn't always mean when it comes to tech workforce that it can be stackable credentials, it can be associates, it could be master's degree, or it can just be, an overall certificate. Like it doesn't always have to be what we think education should be. And then all of that is held together by inclusive tech culture building. So that means that like everyone has access. The barriers and the resources are just by those who have the barriers, and the resources are just placed where they need to be. So I'm gonna press pause there because that was a lot.
No, that was super helpful. And like it's this visual is kind of great to see how it all feeds into each other and what
Mhm.
how it supports itself
Mhm.
with the work. So that's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about, how you've seen this kind of play out in the communities that you work with, whether it is, uh, you know, trainings or like supporting the entrepreneurs that are looking to upskill in these areas? How does that work in reality versus kind of what the plan is?
Yeah, so just so y'all know, I'm well aware that Traverse City is my bias. I live here and I got to go through the journey with them a bit in my previous roles. So I'm just going to use them as the example. Just know that they're one of 37 examples there. So for me, um, how I saw it was we have, and I don't think this is an unusual issue, is that in our community in Traverse City, is that we have a whole bunch of baby boomers about to retire, just the generational gap that's about to hit, where does that talent come from? And so some of our local leaders were actually wanting to know how to upskill their staff and how to make sure that their economy was ready for this and that they weren't going to take a hit. But they also found that some of the younger individuals and I will say millennials and what is it, Gen Z? Yeah, that they're struggling with some of the talent and whatnot. And so what what the leaders did is that they actually started doing some research and going about it and trying to look at how you build a co-working space and where do people go if they want to start a business, because there's so many stories about people starting businesses in their kids like bedroom, their basement or something like that. And there's like, man, wouldn't it be so much nicer to have a spot where people can come and talk and whatnot. And so they started pulling together what they call TC New Tech, which is now part of 20 Fathoms here in town, which is Minnesota, like Ignite Minnesota's equivalent. And so that was like starting to get people together to chat about it. And then leadership started doing tours of different co-working spaces throughout town, throughout the state. And I got to go with some of the actually some of those leaders and some of the donors about like what they actually liked about it and how they did startups and how centralizing the entrepreneurship endeavors in a co-working space allowed for people to learn and accelerate their entrepreneurial journey a little faster. So, eventually they got some grant funding, donors, etc., and got hooked up with CORI. And then we're able to, yes, they're working on broadband infrastructure. Yes, they opened up 20 Fathoms. There were some cultural shifts and whatnot because you're starting a brand new endeavor. You have a new organization and you're making sure everyone's talking to everyone. And I'm not saying that there weren't hiccups along the way because there definitely were. And now, though, like they actually are able to offer programming to entrepreneurs, one of which just went to Corey's Small Town Big Ideas. Oh, I forget what Vernon's last name is, but essentially he was finding a way to test PFAS in the water because, Michigan, we are very water-based. You are a fellow Great Lakes state, 21% of the world's available water. We don't need PFAS in our water. And, his biggest barrier, at least what I saw at TC New Tech when he presented, was like people didn't understand that it was taking 4 to 6 weeks for people to be able to test. And his prototype was something you could take out into the field and get like information in hours, if not less than that. And so like that's kind of some of the beauty over the years because I think so 20 Fathoms opened in like 2017, I think ish. Sorry to any of the Traverse City people if I'm wrong and you watch this. I'm sorry. But like that just happened this year. What's happening at the beginning? It is a very long journey throughout all this. They've had several executive directors, and we all experience a global pandemic and all that jazz too. But we have the community here, and they absorbed TC New Tech because that is the place where all the entrepreneurs come, and they really raised the bar of quality on that because it used to be like a monthly pitch night, and now it's quarterly, and so you get to see what is it that people are doing to make sure that their startup is ready to go in front of someone? Because there were some times where like I was sitting there and like, oh, you just scratch this out on a napkin and we're not quite ready there. And there's a lot of questions. And like the person felt really awkward about like, oh, I don't know if I should present again because I had a really bad experience the first time around. Now, like they actually get those services at 20 Fathoms and like don't have to. And so one, don't feel like so terrified. And two, they do get coaching before going on now because, like, hey, standing in front of a whole bunch of people and telling people what you've been thinking and dreaming about can be scary.
It's
Once again.
super nerve-wracking, super nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
once again, I'm going to press pause because I realized I was talking a lot there.
No, that's awesome. It's nice for us to hear a little bit about kind of, you know, like-minded organization in another area
Yeah.
doing the same kind of things. So question, and this is all of this is personal opinion. You're not we're neither of us are speaking for our organizations, but curious what you think some of the emerging technologies are that hold the most promise for rural revitalization. Maybe we'll skip AI because like that's the obvious. But like are there other technologies that you see as being kind of the future catalyst for some innovation happening in rural communities.
Oh, I don't want to skip AI because
Well,
that's
touch on it then.
okay. And like just so you know, like I think like the thing with AI and like I because like we in our small town big ideas competition, like the person who won, her name's Katie. She is a diehard farmer girl. She created an AI where you can actually like download this program on your phone and it can actually do an assessment in a way that like saves you from having to pull out a big animal vet all the way out to your farm.
Ooh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, super great. It is more technical than that, but I off the top of my head, like that's essentially what it is. And also what I really appreciate that like I have a lot of natural resource friends. We've got the pictured we've got pictured rocks up in the UP here in Michigan, and then we also have Sleeping Bear Dunes. And so like some of the conversations we're having of like how do you like AI takes a lot of water. What does that look like? Especially as a Great Lakes state of just like, okay, if AI is going to take a lot of water to keep cool and continue running, like what does that look like from a water resource standpoint? So that's interesting. But also what I appreciate as well is that AI can help you um look at how do you increase your capacity but doesn't necessarily take away the creativity that you are. So like for me that has been really helpful in being able to look at how can this help me actually do what it is that it needs to be done. And one of the pitches I just saw, I forget which community it was in, but like they actually were creating using AI, which is more wound up being more accurate than the ear molds, but they were creating ear molds for musicians, you know, like the ones like Taylor Swift uses during her concerts. Turns out it was like more accurate than the little mold itself. And like just so y'all know, like those are really intense 800 really expensive earphones. And being able to just like make that more accessible and make it more cost efficient for people who need that beyond just the concert port, but like for people who are hard of hearing and whatnot. So I think AI is one of the ones to keep in mind. I also have a lot of questions around like what are the ethics behind it and like how are we gonna like manage our water with it?
Are there other technologies that you either are kind of on the radar or you're seeing other communities kind of tap into? Like anything, I'm just throwing some out there for curiosity, like anything with blockchain or like drone technology.
So I've seen a little bit of the drone stuff simply because um I mean, this is also a really touristy area and
Yeah,
some of the real estate so there are some people wanting like their real estate sites done with drones, or it makes it easier to go out and take construction site assessments of the site to use a drone instead of the a physical person. But like I've seen a little bit of that here and there, but AI is taking it by storm,
I
as
know
you know.
it's taken the whole world by a storm.
It's terrifying. It is both terrifying and great all at the
It's
same
exciting, like
time.
so much you kind of want to jump out of your skin because
Yeah.
it's like I don't know. Um, so let's change gears a little bit. I want to ask you because I know you have some really good background and experience in kind of pipeline building and support. How important is it that we get youth uh, to start thinking about these, how they can use tech to stay in their communities and not get pulled out of our rural communities?
Yeah, so I'm gonna give some background here that I come from the intersection specifically of STEM education, industry, and workforce development. That has been where my career has been up until this point. And one of the things I think was really important. during my computer science and ed tech world days was that through my research, I found out that we begin to lose women at fifth grade. And if they're still lost by eighth grade, we've lost them entirely. So, as we're looking at our ecosystems, wanting more women engaged in leadership, wanting more um, female entrepreneurs and whatnot, you have to engage in at that age level because you've already lost them if you don't. And from a bigger pipeline, like if y'all haven't thought about education as your workforce pipeline, please open your brains and your mindset to that possibility because, that's where kids learn how to use technology and how to use it appropriately. That's how kids learn how to read. When kids are struggling, like they learn the skill sets of critical thinking, problem solving, which are regardless of what tools are out there, you need in today's economy. And so partnering with K-12 allows you to look at, okay, what is the role I can play? So in my previous role, I partnered with 20 Fathoms to do this thing called Stepping into Girls Who Code. And I was actually told by certain leaders in my community that girls just weren't interested in computer science and ed tech. And I'm just like, I think that's not true. But we actually hosted, and we just like we capped it at 30 and like we hosted little stations for the girls to learn some basic computer coding. And it's anything from we had the kids creating binary code friendship bracelets because that's what they're actually interested in. And we also had like kids figuring out how to like problem solve and actually get out. We had little mini breakout rooms of just like literally break into the box and escape room type situation where they have to work together. They have to talk about it. They have to figure out the clues that go along with it. And yes, I took a conference room, and you would be surprised how hard it is for kids to find stuff in a conference room that had nothing else in there. I would wrap up the little hints into the curtain thingamabobbers, and kids wouldn't think it would take them forever to look through everything. And I told them it was all fair game. Sometimes it's underneath the trash bag in the trash bin and whatnot. But they would always go, Miss Drea, because my last name is Weiner. I never give the kids my last name. But they're like, Miss Drea, how could you? And I'm just like, I said anything was fair game, y'all. So I do think that it's very important. And the reason we were able to partner with 20 Fathoms is because they had workforce development, because they understood that this is needed. And also, just so y'all know, and like if this is something y'all want to try in Minnesota, is like we now have girls whose parents have taken them to Stepping into Girls Who Code. Because the kids, we did it as a one-off, and the kids now ask so much for it. We do it quarterly now. But those kids now come to Women in Tech with their parents. Those kids now go to like some of the local community college programs and seek this out on their own. And they also brought their friends because they openly told us they're just like, oh, I came here because my parents said I had to. And then by the end, they're just like, don't tell my mom, but I really enjoyed this. And so
I love that. I
yeah,
love it when
so
they're like, shh, don't tell anybody, but this is fun.
this
You're
is fun
right.
because it's also like that middle school girl age where like I don't want to admit that I like it, but I really do. And so it was just great. And so and once again, we have been able to see these girls continue to be engaged. And I do like I've been out of that role for 2.5 years, and I still have parents who come up and like thank you for engaging my kid in this. And also like that's how much work it does take. And that's how deep into the K-12 like sphere you have to go. Now there is a model, and I forget the name of it, but I'll send it to you later, Val, to include in the other information with the podcast, where like how deep organizations like Ignite Minnesota go really depends on the age of the kids. You would be more involved with them at the high school, middle school age than you are in kindergarten, just because like that is like there's more supports needed from the education side of things. But that's
Right,
a rant
right.
for a different day.
Yes. But you are touching on something that I do want to talk about because partnership is so important. And you mentioned, partnering with 20 Fathoms and kind of building these things out. Can you talk a little bit about how regional collaboration can help drive this economic development and how maybe some strategies that you have used or seen used to build those partnerships or those collaborations when people might be hesitant for them.
Yeah, so when I talk about ecosystem building, I'm talking about all the organizations needed to make your ecosystem functional. So that includes the workforce development agencies, the economic development plans, the higher ed institutions, the businesses, the chambers, the nonprofits, and whatnot, all of that playing together. Now, what I have found helpful in partnerships and building partnerships is that I look at who all needs this and what their lens is because like there are some people who are going to give because like they want to give because their heart's in the right place, and that's great. And resources are limited. And sometimes people, like some people who got involved in 20 Fathoms, like their heart was in the right place. The industry that they were in was very kind, and they're just like, I want to build this for my community. Excuse me. Others were more calculated, which is once again not bad. It's a different perspective, but they need more workforce. They need people with these skill sets, and they see their money, their time, their resources as an investment that's going to pay back to what they need. And you, as the host organization, can work with both of these mindsets to push your community forward. It's really all about how you frame it and how people look at what it is that they have to give and what they can actually and why they give. So long as your organization can actually think about who are all the players, what are all the resources. One of the things I love, and I think I'll give Traverse City a break and say the Dalles, Oregon, which is another community, they don't dive too deep into workforce development and the tech talent component because they have a really strong workforce development organizations, the programs. They don't want to cannibalize that. And also that creates tension between the two organizations when you start cannibalizing, creating competing programs. No, what they have done instead is that they will actually share back to people who are interested in those programs, interested in tech entrepreneurship, in wanting to get the certifications and stuff. They'll share that back with the workforce development people, and the workforce development people will share like this person's ready to go start their own business. So that's something to keep in mind, that you don't always have to go it alone. You can actually look to see who else is doing similar work within our community. Let's not step on their toes and find a way we can work together.
I love that. And that is exactly what we have been trying to do here and
Mhm.
find similar like-minded organizations and find ways to have it be win-win for us all to work together because
Yeah.
nobody wants to be reinventing things if they're already there. So
Yeah. And it just like it's just a better environment when everyone wants to work together. I know it's
yeah,
hard. It's not always
it
fun.
is. Yep.
COVID made it difficult when resources are scarce, and
Yeah.
also like it does pay off in the long run.
Right, right. Because ideally, it's about building the community and making it stronger.
Yes.
However we can do that. You've touched on this a little bit, but I want to ask you just like flat out, is there like a really cool project that you've seen recently that gives you like hope for the future of tech ecosystems or tech entrepreneurship in general?
Yeah. So, I mean, I shared the story of Vernon and the PFAS, and then there's Katie with the cows. And for me, I get really geeked when I see a community thriving. So yeah, coming to Red Wing, seeing y'all the work y'all do, like that was super cool and whatnot. And I think for me, when it comes to tech entrepreneurship, I really like, and maybe it's like the former teacher in me. It was just like, you know what, I really enjoy when everyone's actually working with each other. But when it comes to um I've seen I've been on some of these tours in Traverse City. They do some of these tours where they actually go to a business and they'll tour the back end of things, and they'll actually it is it is the members of 20 Fathoms who gets to tour another company and whatnot. And I used to do this a little bit with the teachers and whatnot. But then these beautiful conversations between these entrepreneurs start happening about how people approach it, how it's new for their perspective. Oh, I didn't think I could do that, of just like how they go about not just approaching whatever it is they're building, but while also like what their clients are looking for and how you build some, because like let's face it, when if you're building something in your entrepreneurial endeavor and it doesn't actually have any clientele and it doesn't solve the problem that your clients have, you're not going to have a successful startup. And so to see them have these aha moments as they're talking with people and seeing um those conversations just happen, and also see the people who put those events together on going, yes, this is what I was hoping for. That to me is the really great, beautiful moment. The fact that we're able to send people to different startups and host a national pitch competition and see though all of those get to go out for dinner and they start asking each other questions and like how they're building out their equity and access to capital. It's just it's that to me is the more beautiful piece of it. um and I am constantly amazed by the work and ingenuity that comes out of that.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's the fun part for us too, is just seeing when those like natural collaborations start to grow and then it turns into something really cool.
Yeah.
That's you can't really design that. Like
No.
it's an organic thing that happens. It's really nice. Okay, I'm gonna one last question, and I'm
Okay.
gonna do this because Mark is here on the call, but I just want to kind of
Hi,
throw this
Mark.
in here. Uh, how important or what role do you see maker spaces playing in the tech ecosystem?
Okay, so I have to fess up. I used to teach a makerspace class. So full disclosure, I'm very biased here. So what I have found, and Mark, let's chat a little bit at a later date, but what I really enjoy is that makerspace is for me, and it's going to tie everything else. Is like I like seeing kids and adults solving problems that they see. Maker spaces allow like evens the playing field. Like it doesn't matter if you've never opened like dealt with a hammer before or if you're running a 3D printer. Like it is everything in between. And a genuine maker space should have that authenticity and that want to learn and share and all of that jazz along with it. And so what I have found is that they still teach problem solving, critical thinking, how do you actually create something that is helpful for someone else? The design thinking is all there. For those who really want to go deep down into the Scrum project management, that can be taught there. And allowing people to use materials that they never really thought that they could, because like some people do have to dive into the I hate Python, but I also recognize it's very important. It feels I don't understand how it works some days. Like for some reason the code will work one day for me and in a different app it won't, and that's a me issue. But being able to see someone who didn't think that they could code and then be able to code a little bit and get it to do what they need it to do, that's amazing. And that only I only see that really happening in a maker space and in that environment where people are willing to learn and also let people struggle a bit. This I think you do have to learn resilience and struggle. And one of the things in entrepreneurship, whether a community is considered healthy or not, just so y'all know, is that they actually look at how many entrepreneurs fail. And I know that sounds really bad, but what it elevates is that, like, you have how many people who are willing to try again. And so that's the part that in maker spaces, like I even went so far as like we would just like build the biggest tower. And just so you know, I did this with engineers, I've done this with kindergartners. And the engineers would have the hardest time because once it all falls down, there's like, oh, they don't want to start again. And then they see the kindergartner kicking their butt. It's hilarious. If you ever get a chance to put engineers and kindergartners together, like kindergartners are going to win every time. But it shows like, oh, they're not letting the ego or um the effort really like hurt them because they're used to failing and they're used to trying again. they being the kindergartners. And I think that's something that we can learn in maker spaces.
Yeah, I think as adults we kind of forget that, and then we get stuck in these like ego and like, oh, I suck at this, so I'm just gonna give up. Whereas
Well,
kids are like, let's just do it again.
yeah, and to be fair, it is trained out of us, and that's not really the fair part. We have to relearn that, and I think anyone who's had or has spent time around small children, like they get to see like what that looks like. And so, just so y'all know, I don't believe in dumb questions unless you're not asking them. So it might come off as a silly question, and it might seem like, oh my gosh, I feel embarrassed for asking this question. It's like, no. Like the only dumb one is an unasked one because then you actually don't know what's going on. So that's my perspective.
No, I appreciate that. That's exactly my view. So with that said, does anyone have any questions for Drea, or anything they want to talk about in our last few minutes here?
I'll ask you a question for sure. Trey, so yeah, we're trying to get a makerspace going here in Winona and making great progress. But
Good.
I've noticed as going through this, I've found at least two other places in Minnesota opening makerspaces. There's big grants that happened in Connecticut. I feel like there's like, well, I don't know if we're on the third or fourth rebirth of makerspaces. I swear it's every couple of
Mhm.
years. But looking at co-working spaces, entrepreneurial resources, maker spaces, do you think we're seeing more things happen, and any idea why that might be, or is that just totally Bark's narrow vision right now?
I don't think it's your narrow vision right now. I think what it is that it really depends on the ecosystem. So, for example, we just had a community join that hasn't been publicly announced yet, but they just opened up their 3D printing lab and the workshops that goes along with that. And in the entrepreneurial field, I understand how hard it is to get your first prototype made. And excuse me, how many lessons can actually come from the fact that like you're holding your first prototype and oh crap, all my math was off and I did not do this right.
Yeah.
And like as someone who has also built her own 3D printer, it's just like it's one of those things where it's just like you want to be able to iterate as fast as possible, which is also similar to Vernon's PFAS story of wanting to get the data as soon as possible.
Sure.
And so maker spaces allow you to have that. And I think people have taken lessons over like what the ethos of maker spaces are, because I think that's the part of whether it's successful or not, is like that people see this as a shared resource. It's not a scarcity mindset. It is something that people can use and actually know that there's a skill set behind it. Because I think one of the things that I'm not on board with the AI mindset is that's going to take everyone's jobs. Maker spaces, like they teach you those skills anyways, and that's what's actually needed. And like, I use AI mostly to help me make sure that my ADHD is like making sure that this is all written in a grammatical way. Like I
Mhm.
understand that's a really limited way of looking at AI, but like maker spaces and whatnot can actually help you through that process. So,
Thank you.
is it going through another renaissance? Maybe, but also like
Hard to say.
yeah, there's another community also knowing that it's like it's still useful, it's still helpful, and also it's not that different from placemaking. I know that those are two different things, but like they are cousins.
Yeah, definitely cousins.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think it's really important that we tell the story of how that impacts entrepreneurship and in our ecosystem. We had an entrepreneur that works with us that had been having a lot of trouble. Like she has a game that she's developing, and like making the little pieces for her game was getting really expensive. And a 3D printing place opened up, and she was able to go and prototype quickly and get figure out where she was wrong in some assumptions, and like get actual product way faster. So I think it's just telling those stories and making sure that people understand the resources that are available and how to tap into them. So I'm
How to
excited
share.
for Mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
But Mark, but just make sure people know how to share because I think so many
Yes.
people have forgotten how to share.
Yes. Good
Very good
point.
tip. Yeah.
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 All right. Well, thank you so much, Drea. This has been a great, enlightening conversation. I appreciate you very much. How can people get a hold of you or anybody at CORI if they are interested in learning more?
Yeah, so there is a hello@ruralinnovation.us for anyone at CORI. I can point you to anyone at CORI as well for the right one. So I am Drea period Weiner at ruralinnovation.us. If anyone wants to get a hold of me from further chats, I'm also on LinkedIn as well. It's just Drea Weiner. So that's how y'all can find me, and I'll make sure that I'm open, available, and I always share fun things. So.
Awesome. And I will make sure that those everybody gets links to that. So thank you again for your time. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next time.